Hi, today, welcome to the channel. We're going to be talking about how to make your own potting mix that's better than stuff that's in the store. We're going to do a good, better, and best. I did make a video earlier on when I first started the channel. I talked really fast, so I'm going to try to slow it down. Talk a little slower. Hopefully the mic works well. We're trying out a new mic system, so we're going with that also. But basically, I got a lot of pots, and you just can't afford to, or I can't afford to buy the potting mixes in the stores and stuff, Miracle Grow, Peters, and all the different ones. And the problem with those also, those are really designed for annual plants. They work good if you're going to use it for 6-9 months and then, either discard it or redo it or refluff it up. They're have a lot of your peat moss stuff here in it. I have some cocoa coir and sometimes some compost, different stuff like that. And they're very water retentive. They store a lot of water, which in the summertime is not necessarily bad. But if you go into the winter time, if you have a perennial, what that'll cause, it'll stay too wet for too long. It'll cause root rot and your plants will decline. A lot of my plants, they've been in these pots for 5 or 6 years, sometimes longer. I think I got one 7 or 8 years old. I've never changed the potting medium on it. I will up pot them. I take from one pot, but I don't mess with the root balls that much, if at all. And that's what I'm going to be doing today with this pot here. I planted this. It was a smaller one. Put it in this size pot here, and now it's starting to get to the size that I need to go to a bigger pot. Now, when I'm talking about this potting mix I'm going to be talking about today, I'm talking about putting potting mix in one of these plastic containers. This is where I'm going to be putting this container in. And I've got the hose cut out. I don't put the hose in the bottom, because you put them in the bottom, if it sits on the ground, you can have a tree root come in and invade your pot and suck all your moisture and your nutrients out of the pot. Or another thing that happens is the plant may put the roots out and start growing in the ground. And when you get, like these, I'm going to move inside if we get a real cold spell. If I have to do that, it kind of stinks. Then you're going to have problems moving it, because it's going to be rooted into the ground. So if you can, now some people will also take these and they'll drill the hose up an inch or two above the bottom. And what that does, that gives you the reservoir down here to suck up plants. I like doing that if I'm doing tomatoes or something that's a yearly plant. It works well. I don't do it just for fear of the root rot on my ones that I'm going for long-term growth. Because like I say, I'm planning on getting 5-6 years out of these at least. And there's going to come a time in which those plants are going to go downhill anyway. So, I read one deal saying that in 9 years these things won't be any good. But I'm going, but at 9 years, I'm going to be redoing them anyway. I'm not looking at getting 20-30 years out of the pot. To do that, you have to put sand and soil and different stuff of that nature in it. But this is trying to get 4 or 5 years out of your potting mix. Basic potting mix that I use is nothing I came up with. It's called the 5-1-1. It's 5-part peat moss. 5-part pine bark mulch, and this is the pine bark mulch I get. It's called From Living Earth. I like it because with it's it's got small chunks in it. You don't have really big chunks in it. If you get too big of chunks in them, you're just not going to have to hold the water. So you want the smaller chunks. You don't want it too small, or you retain too much water. So it's that you're playing that game. So 5 parts of this. So we're going to put 5 parts, high volume. That's going to be one. That even shows it better about the size chunk that you're wanting. And that's going to be 2. I go one more. But one thing I found out, you don't want to. First, I'm going to do this with a watch on. you don't want to put all one top. So that's going to be 3. All right. I'm also going to put 1 part what normally be peat moss, and I'm going to substitute it. But normally I'll go peat moss. That's the 1 part, and then the other 1 part, and that allows it to retain moisture. It also helps retain nutrients. It ties it to it. And the other part is perlite. Trying to breathe this stuff in because it's not good for your health. That's a lot of perlite. And then, like I say, normally I'll put it in the peat moss, but today I'm going to put in some stuff called expanded shale, and kind of got it mixed up but anyway, so that's kind of the mix. Now, y'all can tell by the video I'm going to do a lot more talking, but I got this expanded shale at HEB near Houston. And so that's going to be about another one. So I'm going to put the whole bag in. And what these are is little rocks that they've heated up and they've expanded, and they got little air holes in them. And that will allow air to stay in it. They say even if you put them underwater, you still have some air in it. So it helps aerate it, and it will keep a certain amount of moisture in it also. The main thing is for aeration. So you got aeration with your perlite, and now we're going to put 2 more because it's supposed to be 5 to 1. I've only put 3 down so far. So 2 more of these. And then you get dig in there and just mixes it all up. So as you can see, it does not take very long to mix this stuff up or to come up with it, to make it. And it's worked really well for me. Plants seem to do well with it. Now, I will say one thing right from the start. Let's stick a rooster. That this mix has no nutrients in it. You're going to have to supply the nutrients that go to your plants. This is just a medium to grow your roots in. So, and all your potting mixes are kind of that way. Sometimes they add some fertilizer in the store, but you're going to have to add a complete fertilizer. You know, don't get the kind that's just got the 3 nutrients to it. Be careful if you say, I'm going to use organics, and you get like blood meal, because blood meal, it's a good nitrogen source, but it doesn't have your micronutrients in it. Doesn't have phosphorus, I don't believe. Doesn't even have potassium in it either. It's mainly a good source for nitrogen. So, not knocking it, but you need to get one that's got complete. Yes, the infamous Miracle Grow. There's Foliage Pro that's good. It's a liquid form of fertilizer. Just make sure it's got the micronutrients in it also. And, you know, it's got the cobalt, and it's got the zinc, it's got the iron and manganese and magnesium. Got all those, because the plant needs all those things in it. Normally they're in the soil, but we're not putting any soil in here because soil does not drain well, and it does get compacted really quickly. Let me come over here. Because this is what came out of this bucket right here. I dumped it out, and you can see this stuff still breaks up really easy. It's been sitting in the pot for about a year without anything in it, and normally you'll see this stuff, if you got a lot of your peat moss in it, it'll harden up and get hard as a rock. This stuff, it's still fairly, you know, still got some chunks in it. Now I am redoing it, and the reason I'm redoing it, it's got 5 years on it. So I don't want to put something that's already decomposed, but as you can see, it's still got some of those chunks in it. So it's done really well. And like I said, I really enjoy using it. Now, some people will say you need to put lime in this stuff, and that's 8 ounces of lime or a handful of lime for every 5-gallon bucket of mix. If you have something that is really sensitive to low pH, adding lime will raise that pH. It'll give you some calcium, may even give you some magnesium. So it's good stuff. But if you're going long term with it, I backed off on it because there is a thing called pH creep. Basically, if you're using tap water, your tap water is going to be alkaline because they don't want any lead leaching into your water lines. So they make sure that's alkaline. So it's going to slowly raise that pH up over time. And if I see my plants like tomatoes, I may add, just so I can get calcium into the mix, may add lime for that purpose. But you know, especially if you're in the western part of the U.S. or western part of Texas, I wouldn't add lime. And like I say, unless you need it for, you know, cantaloupes, spinach, okra, kind of, you know, those plants need a high pH. So, you know, you want to correct the pH for that. I did know on Miracle Grow, I've looked at their bags. They don't add any lime to it. So, you know, that's kind of a personal choice. I used to do it. I don't do it anymore. Do use your regular fertilizer it's going to use. I don't like using organic fertilizer in a pot because it works good in the ground. If you want to use it in ground raised beds, because you got that bacteria that's growing in your soil, and it can interact and it helps break down those organics. These containers, they get hot and cold, and it just doesn't. You can't. It's hard to get that that biosphere or that the biology to go correctly, and it also takes a while for it to break down. You know, if you put compost into you apply compost out there, it can take up to 5 years for it to completely break down and release all its nutrients. So that's why when you do raised beds, the first year is never as good as the second year, hardly ever. And a lot of people say, well, you know, first year these things didn't grow well. The second year they're doing real good. But two things happen. Number one, you had too much organic matter, so that sucked the nitrogen out. And number two, the stuff that you did, the organic fertilizer you did put on there, some of it's still hanging on for the next year. I always say half the organic fertilizer you put down 1 year, you're going to get the next year. So it's going to be stretched out over 2 or 3 year basis, and even up to 5 years. So, you know, those raised beds, you know, you get that good biome going and everything's working well. It's hard to do that in the pot just because it gets hot and cold, and sometimes you get that bacteria to die off. And to me, it's just easier. If you want to use organics, that's fine. But if I somebody starting out, you know, I go with one of the synthetics. One of the synthetic fertilizers. And again, make sure that it is a complete fertilizer, and make sure you never put any synthetics on your garden or anywhere else that shows weed and feed, because that weed stuff, that weed control is going to kill your plants. You know, that's what it's made to do. So don't make that mistake. And also, it's just super expensive, and I don't like weed and feed, period. But really never put it in your pots. So let's go ahead and let's pot up this. It's a Kishu mandarin. And what I always do, you're gonna have to fill this thing up. And I guess I didn't go over the good, better, and best. To me, your good is the 511, 5 parts of your pine bark mulch, 1 part of peat moss, and 1 part of your perlite. This perlite in this bag costs about $30. If you're wondering, that's gonna make a lot. This stuff here costs $3 or $4 a bag. This costs $20 for a big, 3 cubic foot, and that's compressed on peat moss. This here costs about $4 if you just want to go with it. So that's the first part. To me, that's the best. I mean, that's good. Second best, what I'd like better, really like this expanded shell. And I'd say it's probably better if you can find it. It's hard to find. I found it at HEB. I think Callaway Nurseries has it up around Dallas and things. So if you can find it, it's great. And this is called New Earth Organic Top Shelf Expanded Shell. So, and it's really used for to put in the clay, so clays will it'll break up the clay, so they won't be as compacted and get some oxygen into the soil. But to me, it works really good in these pots here. It also adds a little bit of bulk, and that's good for the fact that these things will blow over easy. So if I can put a little bit of bulk in, they don't blow over quite as easy. Sand does not work well at all, because sand, it does not catch any of the nutrients. It doesn't hold any moisture. It just basically adds weight, and you have to have almost 50% of it where it ever helps with drainage. I think there's something else I was going to say. Anyway, the best. Now, if I had my choice, had plenty of money, here's what I would do. I'd still go with the 5 parts of this. Of the pine bark. And these, you may go 5, you may go 3. I mean, that's not a hard and fast rule. Okay, that's a beginning point. There is a thing called, you get O'Reilly's Auto Parts, and it's called it's diatomaceous earth called Optisorb, and I'll put that down in case you can't understand it. And what it is coarse ground diatomaceous earth. And what diatomaceous earth does for you, it also has a lot of pores in it, and it will hold a lot of water, but it also helps for drainage. So it kind of does both. So to me, the best that you could do would be 5 parts of their pine bark mulch, 1 part of your diatomaceous earth, and 1 part expanded shell. And I think you do just fine. But that can get a little pricey. This here for, I think, 25-pound bags, like $20. So that can get a little expensive if you're paying $5 for this. So it's according to what you're wanting to pay. But you know, that to me is kind of the top that you can get. Now, what you want to do whenever you're planting these things, can you see it in the video? You want this thing to be just a little bit lower than, I'm going to put just a little bit more in there, because you don't want it to be too high, because you don't want all the water running off. You don't want the roots exposed, but you don't want it too low in the fact that you lose volume within your pot. Remember that these things are going to go down about 1 inch every year. So just due to the fact that this pine bark is degrading. So I'll add just a little bit more. Okay, so that's going to be about right. It's above here, but the soil line is about right here. So we're going to try this. And I always get nervous. Okay. But that's a few little roots that's growing around, so I will pull those out. I do not try to mess with that root ball any more than I have to. If I see some circular roots, I may stretch them out a little bit, but this is not root bound at all. So there's no use messing around with the roots, especially this is July. You really don't want to be messing with it this time of year, because you don't want to stress the plant and kill it. At this point, and I didn't do it, but I'm going to get some water. I won't be able to finish it because of that. I'll put some little fertilizer in it and water it in, and then I'll finish filling it up and put more fertilizer in it. But that's kind of, you know, it's not hard to do. It's a lot cheaper than buying it. I do suggest you do it if you're going to do it on a big basis. It's not rocket science. Just remember, you got to include all your nutrients into this mix, and you don't want to, sound like Joe Biden right now. You don't want to get it too retentive with water because that can cause problems in the wintertime. But usually with plants like this, I can usually get 2 or 3 days where I have between waterings. And it's going to naturally dwarf the plants because the roots are going to kind of dwarf them. Sounds like the same thing I did the video on the raised bed. That has so many roots in it, no matter what I plant in, it's going to be dwarfed. It's not going to do well. It's going to suck the moisture out and it's going to suck the nutrients out. The plants just can't compete. You know, a little bitty plant like that can't compete with all these massive tree roots. So same thing is going to be in here. Is they're just not going to, you know, they're competing against themselves, so it's okay. But they're going to grow up, you know, pretty good size. You watch some other videos, you kind of see the size they're going to get to. You know, they're not going to get huge, but you're going to have, they will make a lot of fruit for you. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have any comments or questions, just leave down in the comment section below. Thank you.